Section 1. The Trap of the Fool. There's a silent truth most people never learn. Arguing with a fool doesn't prove your intelligence. It proves you've lowered yourself to their level. Every fool wants one thing: attention. The moment you engage, you feed their chaos, you give them power, and in that instant, they've already won. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy," because the Stoic knew when you fight a fool, you become one. You see, a fool is not defined by ignorance, but by arrogance. They don't seek truth. They seek validation. They don't want understanding. They want victory. They don't listen to learn. They listen to respond. So when you argue with them, you're not having a conversation. You're stepping into an emotional battlefield where logic dies. And that's where most people lose, not because they were wrong, but because they forgot the purpose of strength. Control. The fool thrives on reaction. He feeds on your anger. He grows stronger the more you explain yourself. And this is the danger. You start thinking, if I just say the right thing, they'll understand. But they won't, because understanding requires humility, and fools have none. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults. Else he would not have mentioned only these.'" That's Stoic mastery, not reacting, not defending, not wasting energy, because the truth doesn't need defending, only egos do. You must understand this. Arguing with a fool is like wrestling with mud. No matter how skilled you are, you still get dirty. The wise don't argue to win. They observe to understand. They use silence as a weapon, and when the fool finally realizes his noise meets no resistance, he destroys himself. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't fight, don't explain, don't react, observe, smile, and remember. A lion doesn't turn around when a dog barks, because silence, not words, is the language of the powerful. Section 2. The Psychology of Provocation. How fools manipulate your mind. The fool's weapon is not intelligence, it's instinct. They don't need logic to control you. They only need to trigger you. Understand this clearly. Most fools are emotional strategists without realizing it. They know how to get under your skin. They know which words to use to make you defend yourself, justify yourself, and react impulsively. They don't argue for truth. They argue for dominance, and the moment you engage, you give them what they want, your focus. This is dark psychology in its rawest form, because provocation is power. If someone can control your emotions, they control your decisions. Think about it. Every argument you've ever had that drained your energy, every debate that made you angry hours later, every time you replayed someone's insult in your head, that wasn't communication, that was psychological manipulation. The Stoics understood this centuries before modern psychology existed. They knew emotion is the mind's Achilles heel. Seneca warned, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Why? Because time breaks the illusion of urgency. When you pause, you take back control, but the fool doesn't pause. They thrive on immediacy, on reaction, on heat. They know if they can make you angry, you'll say things you regret. You'll lose logic. You'll surrender control. This is how they win. Not through truth, but through chaos. The Stoic response, therefore, isn't passive. It's strategic silence. It's emotional alchemy, turning their chaos into your composure. You see, when a fool provokes you, they expect two things: your argument or your anger. Give them neither, and you become untouchable. Instead, you study them. You observe their tone, their body language, their desperation to be seen. You see the child behind the noise, and when you understand that, you stop taking them personally. That's the first law of emotional warfare. Don't respond to tone, respond to truth. And if there is no truth in their words, respond with nothing at all. Because fools don't fear confrontation. They fear irrelevance. When you stay silent, they start talking more. They reveal their insecurity. Their emotional mask begins to slip. They become exposed, not by your words, but by their own lack of control. Remember this, the more a person needs to prove themselves, the less power they have. Real power is quiet, real intelligence is still, real confidence needs no defense. So when they shout, stay still. When they mock, stay composed. When they bait, stay wise, because every reaction you withhold is a piece of your energy preserved, and in the world of fools, energy is the ultimate currency. Section 3. The Art of Strategic Silence. How to win without engaging. Silence is not weakness, silence is strategy. It's the art of saying everything by saying nothing. Most people think silence means surrender. They believe that not responding makes them look small, passive, or afraid. But the wise know something deeper. Silence is a mirror. It forces the fool to face themselves. When you stop engaging, they start unraveling. When you stop explaining, they start exposing. When you stop reacting, they start revealing their true nature. Silence is a test, and most fail it because a fool cannot stand a void. They crave noise, drama, validation. They survive on emotional energy, and silence starves them of it. So when you stay silent, they panic, they talk louder, they repeat themselves, they exaggerate, they twist your stillness into guilt, hoping to provoke a response. But that's the moment you win, not by reacting, but by staying sovereign. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. Things are not made better by your being upset about them." That's the core of Stoic power. You can't control others, but you can control access. Access to your emotions, your energy, your peace. Silence isn't passive resistance. It's emotional precision. It's deciding, this is not worth my energy, and that decision alone separates the wise from the restless. Dark psychology confirms what the Stoics knew all along. The one who speaks least controls the frame. In every confrontation, there's an invisible power dynamic, and the person who reacts less holds the higher ground. Try this next time someone provokes you. Instead of defending yourself, pause, let the silence stretch. Watch how uncomfortable they become. That's not just calm, that's control. You see, words are like currency. The more you spend them, the less they're worth. But when you use silence strategically, your presence becomes rare, and rarity commands respect. Silence turns confusion into introspection. It makes people question themselves, and the fool who thrives on attention begins to fear your indifference. That's how you win without engaging. You let them destroy themselves with their own need to be heard. Epictetus taught this discipline masterfully. He said, "When someone is wronged, they must decide whether to be harmed. If you refuse to see it as harm, you are not harmed." In other words, silence doesn't mean weakness. It means immunity, because silence is not about avoiding conflict. It's about transcending it. It's about refusing to be dragged into chaos that doesn't deserve your mind. When you respond to noise with silence, you teach a lesson words never could. That peace is power, that composure is confidence, that the fool's voice can never reach the level of your calm. So let them shout, let them accuse, let them drown in their own noise. You stay silent, and let your discipline echo louder than their desperation, because in the end, silence is the loudest message the wise ever send. Section 4. Emotional Sovereignty. Mastering the inner battlefield. Every battle you face, every insult, every provocation, every test starts and ends in one place, your mind. Most people lose before the argument even begins because they haven't mastered the inner battlefield. They enter the fight already emotional, already reactive, already triggered. The Stoics saw this as the greatest tragedy, that men spend their lives conquering lands, careers and people, but never conquer themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not poetry, and it's instruction. He was reminding you, the mind is your fortress, and every reaction you give away is a crack in its walls. The fool doesn't need to overpower you, he just needs to distract you. He throws emotional bait, and the moment you bite, you're his. He doesn't win through intelligence. He wins through interruption. He drags you from your center. He turns your clarity into confusion, your peace into reaction. But the Stoic warrior never leaves the fortress. He watches his emotions rise like waves. Anger, pride, ego. But he doesn't drown in them. He observes them, controls them, and channels them. This is emotional sovereignty. To feel deeply, but choose consciously. To have emotion, but not be owned by emotion. To respond, not react. To hold composure even when chaos screams for your attention. That's power, the kind of power that terrifies manipulators, because emotional control removes their leverage. Seneca warned that anger makes you a slave, not to others, but to your own impulses. And the fool's greatest goal is to make you his puppet. He wants you to shout, defend, over-explain, because every outburst proves he has control over you. You think you're winning, but you're playing his game. So the Stoic changes the rules. He doesn't argue. He observes. He doesn't react. He reflects. He doesn't mirror emotion. He masters it. He uses awareness as his weapon. He recognizes when pride starts whispering, when they insult you, you must respond. And instead he smiles because he knows that every insult is an unpaid invoice. It only costs you energy if you decide to pay attention. So he remains calm, not because he's emotionless, but because he's disciplined. Emotional sovereignty is not suppression, it's selection, choosing which emotions deserve to be expressed and which deserve to be released. And when you live this way, you become untouchable. You no longer need to fight every fool because their words can't reach your level of consciousness. You no longer need to prove your worth because your peace proves it for you. The world will still test you, but now the test becomes your training. Every insult sharpens your patience. Every misunderstanding deepens your wisdom. Every attempt to provoke you only reveals your strength. And slowly, you start to realize the fools aren't your enemies. They're your teachers. They show you where you're still reactive, where you still seek validation, where your peace can still be stolen. And once you see that, you stop fearing them. You start thanking them, because through their noise, you learn silence. Through their chaos, you learn composure. Through their weakness, you learn power. That's emotional sovereignty, not detachment from the world, but dominance over yourself. Section 5. The law of energy. Stop explaining yourself. There comes a point in your evolution where you stop explaining yourself, not because you're arrogant, but because you've realized your energy is sacred. Every time you over-explain, defend, or justify yourself, you're handing out pieces of that sacred energy to people who haven't earned the right to receive it. Most people waste their life trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding them. They explain their dreams to people with no vision. They defend their choices to those who never took a risk. They seek validation from those who have none to give. That's not wisdom, that's exhaustion, disguised as virtue. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop talking. Start being. You owe explanations to no one except yourself and your purpose. Your silence is not an admission of guilt. It's a declaration of focus. Dark psychology teaches us that manipulators feed on justification. When they question you, they don't seek clarity, they seek control. They want you to prove yourself, because the moment you start explaining, you're already submitting to their frame. The Stoic flips that dynamic entirely. He doesn't explain, he acts. He doesn't defend, he demonstrates. He doesn't argue, he ascends. Every unnecessary explanation is a leak in your power. Every justification dilutes your authority. Every overreaction signals emotional instability. And so, the wise choose silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand that not everyone deserves a response. Seneca said, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it. Likewise, he who keeps explaining himself to fools encourages their ignorance." You don't need to convince anyone who you are. Your consistency does that for you. You don't need to prove your worth. Your peace is the proof. Fools demand words. Masters deliver results. And when you stop explaining yourself, something powerful happens. People begin to listen differently. Your silence becomes mysterious. Your composure becomes intimidating. Your focus becomes magnetic. They start wondering why they can't shake you, why their opinions no longer affect you, why you move like someone with an inner empire. It's because you've reclaimed your energy, and energy is everything. You see, the Stoics viewed attention as currency. Whatever you give it to grows. Give it to fools, and you amplify foolishness. Give it to your purpose, and you amplify power. So the next time someone demands your explanation, remember this law. You owe clarity to your mission, not your critics. You owe peace to your mind, not justification to your doubters. Walk in silence. Let them misunderstand. Let them gossip, misjudge, and assume. Because their words only echo, they cannot touch your reality. When you no longer explain, you no longer depend on being understood. And that is the ultimate freedom. So stop explaining. Start becoming, because the most powerful statement you'll ever make is peace in the presence of misunderstanding. Section 6. The power of detachment. When walking away is the ultimate victory, one of the hardest lessons in life, and perhaps the most misunderstood, is that walking away is not defeat, it is mastery. In the eyes of the fool, walking away means surrender, but in the mind of the Stoic, it is the highest form of control, because when you walk away, you are not escaping the world. You are escaping the illusion of control that binds most people to it. Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." And arguments, the endless cycle of who's right and who's wrong, are the purest expression of that suffering. Every time you argue with a fool, you're trying to make sense of nonsense. You're trying to plant seeds of reason in a mind that feeds on chaos. That's like trying to teach thunder how to whisper. You cannot reason with ignorance that takes pride in itself. You cannot awaken someone who fights to stay asleep. The fool doesn't seek truth, he seeks attention. He doesn't want resolution, he wants reaction. And the moment you give him your reaction, he owns your peace. Walking away, then, is not avoidance. It's alchemical control. It's the moment you realize that your attention is your most valuable possession. The more you guard it, the more power you keep. The more you waste it on pointless battles, the weaker you become. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is mistaken, instruct them kindly. But if you cannot, blame yourself or no one." Meaning, teach if possible. Detach if necessary. If the other person cannot hear you, the battle is not with them. It's with your ego that insists on being understood. You see, most people aren't addicted to conflict. They're addicted to being right, and the Stoic refuses to feed that addiction. He doesn't need to win the argument, he needs to win himself. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've outgrown the battlefield. It means you value your mental state more than your momentary pride. The modern world glorifies confrontation. Everyone wants to clap back, to prove a point, to defend their truth, but Stoicism teaches the opposite. The more control you have, the less you need to display it. Dark psychology tells us that energy vampires, those who thrive on drama, gossip, and emotional chaos, crumble when you give them silence. Because silence denies them control. Silence exposes their insecurity. When you stop engaging, you cut off their oxygen supply, you suffocate their manipulation, you reclaim your peace. Detachment isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. It's the art of feeling everything and still choosing what deserves your reaction. When you walk away, you send a silent message. I am not your emotional playground. I am not here to validate your dysfunction. I am not fighting for your approval. I'm protecting my peace. This is how the Stoic wins, without shouting, without proving, without fighting, by rising above the noise. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving someone wrong. It's in refusing to descend to their level at all. Seneca said, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself, and no empire stands if it fights every fool that throws a stone." The moment you understand this, you stop reacting to everything. You stop chasing closure. You stop explaining. You stop proving. You walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. You care about peace more than pride. You care about purpose more than petty arguments. You care about energy more than ego. So let them talk. Let them twist your words, misread your silence, and build their own stories about you. You will not correct them, because your evolution is not a group discussion. You walk away, and in doing so, you win before the game even begins. Section 7. The Silent Mind. How Stoics weaponize calm in chaos, when chaos erupts, when insults are thrown, when tempers flare. When people lose themselves in emotion, the Stoic stands still, not because he feels nothing, but because he understands everything. The modern mind reacts. The Stoic mind responds. There's a difference. Reaction is impulsive. It's the ego defending itself. Response is deliberate. It's wisdom expressing itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world tries to pull your strings. People try to provoke you. Situations try to test you. But once you understand that control begins and ends in your mind, you become untouchable. Let's go deeper. Dark psychology tells us that chaos is a strategy. When people can't dominate you with logic, they'll try to dominate you with emotion. They'll provoke you, mock you, interrupt you, not to win truth, but to win control. If you lose your calm, they win your power. If you stay still, they lose their grip. This is why silence is not weakness. It's weaponized composure. The Stoic doesn't need to shout to prove he's right. He proves it by being unmoved. You see, calm is confusing to the chaotic. They expect escalation. They expect noise. They expect a reaction because that's how they measure control. So when you don't give them one, they unravel. Epictetus said, "When someone is rude, it is because they fear losing control." Remember this, and you will not be disturbed. To remain calm is to expose the truth, not through words, but through stillness. Imagine this. Someone insults you in public. Everyone watches, waiting for your explosion, but you don't react. You simply look at them, and you smile. You say nothing. You walk away. In that moment, you've said everything. You've declared that their chaos has no command over your peace. You've proven that your mind is your fortress, and no one gets in without permission. Calm is not passive. It's assertive. Energy in its purest form. It's the quiet statement of strength that whispers, "I am not threatened by your storm. I am not defined by your perception. I am not available for emotional warfare." Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He led armies, faced betrayal, governed an empire, and yet his greatest power was stillness. While others panicked, he observed. While others argued, he listened. While others burned with anger, he burned with clarity, because he knew emotions are like waves. You cannot stop them, but you can learn to surf them. The Stoic mind is a calm ocean beneath a raging surface. Storms pass, winds shift, chaos fades, but the deep remains still. This is the essence of emotional mastery. It's not about pretending you don't feel, it's about feeling fully, but never letting the feeling become your master. Dark psychology says, control the emotional tone, and you control the room. The Stoic flips this law inward. Control your emotional tone, and you control your world. Calmness makes people curious. It makes them respect you, not fear you. Because they cannot predict what you'll do next. They cannot manipulate you through emotion. You've become unreadable, untouchable, unstoppable. The world today rewards loudness, but true power lives in silence. The more silent you become, the more dangerous you are. Why? Because silence requires discipline, and discipline is a language only the powerful understand. The Stoic doesn't compete in chaos. He lets the storm destroy itself. When everyone else is drowning in noise, the Stoic listens. When everyone else is rushing to speak, the Stoic waits. When everyone else is fighting to be right, the Stoic focuses on being wise. That's how you weaponize calm. That's how you dominate chaos, not through aggression, but through awareness. Because once you master yourself, no one else can master you. Section 8. The psychology of the fool. Why some people crave conflict. The fool doesn't argue because he seeks truth. He argues because he fears silence. Because in silence, he must face himself. And that is the one battle he cannot win. When you understand this, you stop taking fools personally. You start seeing them for what they are, a mind at war with itself, desperately trying to drag others into its chaos. Seneca once wrote, "An angry man opens his mouth and shuts his eyes." That's the psychology of the fool. Blind to reason, addicted to reaction. Let's break it down through the lens of dark psychology. The fool is powered by ego insecurity. He cannot tolerate being wrong. So he hides behind noise, volume, and mockery. He seeks dominance through confusion, to blur logic with emotion. When a Stoic speaks calmly, the fool grows louder, because your calm exposes his weakness. Your logic reveals his lack of it. Your silence forces him to confront the void within. The fool doesn't want understanding. He wants validation. He doesn't care about truth. He cares about control. He feeds on reactions, on energy, on attention. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. As long as you feed him, he wins. This is the dark dynamic. The Stoics understood centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius knew that fools thrive on entanglement. They pull you into their storm so you'll forget your peace. They make you emotional, so you'll abandon your reason. They make you react, so you'll lose your self-command. But a wise man sees the pattern and steps out of it. Remember this. Arguing with a fool is like wrestling in mud. Sooner or later, you realize the fool enjoys it. This is why the Stoic path is not about changing others. It's about protecting yourself. You can't teach someone who doesn't want to learn. You can't save someone who's committed to self-destruction. You can't explain truth to someone who's addicted to illusion. Seneca said it best. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Delay your response. Observe the fool, not with hatred, but with curiosity. Why is he shouting? Why is he so desperate to be right? Why does he need to prove something to a stranger? Because deep inside, he's drowning. He's suffocating under the weight of his own fear and inadequacy. He projects it outward, hoping to find relief through conflict, but conflict never heals him. It only feeds the fire. So the Stoic does not throw water or gasoline. He simply walks away and lets the fire burn itself out. This is emotional alchemy, turning the heat of chaos into the strength of clarity. When you don't engage, you starve the fool's hunger for validation. You show him that your mind cannot be manipulated by noise. You send a quiet but powerful message. You cannot pull me into your storm. I'll bring you into my calm. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want peace. They want entertainment. They confuse drama with purpose and reaction with relevance. And when you refuse to participate, they'll call you cold. They'll call you detached. They'll call you heartless. But that's fine. Let them think what they must. Because while they spend their energy proving they're right, you're building a life that is. The fool lives to win arguments. The Stoic lives to win himself. That's the difference between noise and wisdom, between impulse and insight, between the chaos of fools and the calm of kings. So when you encounter a fool, remember this rule: don't descend, don't engage, don't argue, observe, learn, walk away. Because in the game of fools, The only winning move is not to play. Section 9. The Stoic Mirror. Turning every fool into a teacher. Every fool you meet is a reflection of your unfinished discipline. They show you where you still react, where you still take things personally, where your peace still depends on other people's behavior. This is the Stoic mirror. The world is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Each conflict, each insult, each foolish encounter is a test of your self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." He understood that the fool doesn't just reveal their weakness, they expose yours. If you react to every fool, it's not because of them. It's because something within you still craves validation, still fears disrespect, still needs to prove itself. That's where the real work begins. The Stoic uses fools as tools for refinement. He doesn't run from them, he studies them. He asks, what is this person teaching me about my own control? What does their behavior reveal about my attachment to being understood, admired, or respected? Because the fool is a mirror, and what you see in them is what you must face in yourself. Seneca once wrote, "The wise man is always at peace with himself, but never satisfied with himself," meaning peace doesn't mean complacency, it means awareness without judgment. It means knowing where your emotions are still vulnerable and strengthening them through reflection, not reaction. Dark psychology confirms this truth. People project what they suppress. The fool's arrogance hides his fear, his mockery hides his pain, his constant arguing hides the silence he cannot face. So when you meet someone like that, don't absorb their poison. Study it. Ask, what kind of pain would create this kind of behavior? That question transforms irritation into insight. The Stoic doesn't waste pain, he recycles it into power. If someone disrespects you, good. Now you see where your ego still hungers for validation. If someone mocks you, good. Now you can test your detachment from the opinions of others. If someone lies about you, good. Now you can practice indifference to what you cannot control. That's how you turn fools into fuel. Each time you face disrespect with composure, you're building an inner fortress, brick by brick, moment by moment. And this is where most people fail. They try to escape conflict by avoiding the world entirely. But the Stoic doesn't isolate, he integrates. He walks through the noise with silence inside him. He uses the chaos as resistance. And training for the soul, because every time you resist the urge to react, you strengthen your self-command. Every time you choose stillness over shouting, you sharpen your awareness. Every time you walk away from pointless arguments, you reclaim energy for what truly matters. The Stoic turns enemies into educators, insults into exercises, conflict into clarity. It's a shift so powerful, it changes how you see everything. Suddenly, the fool who tries to provoke you becomes your teacher of patience. The liar becomes your test of integrity. The manipulator becomes your lesson in boundaries. Everyone becomes your teacher, even the worst among them. This is how the Stoic grows in silence. While others repeat the same emotional cycles, he doesn't curse his challenges. He thanks them for sharpening his mind. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, criticism, and loss. Yet instead of complaining, he wrote his meditations. He turned pain into philosophy, and philosophy into peace. That's what the Stoic mirror teaches. Your enemies are just mirrors showing you how strong you've become, or how much strength you still need to build. So next time you face a fool, don't think, why me? Think, what is this teaching me? Because once you see every fool as a teacher, you stop fearing them, you stop resenting them, you start transcending them. That's the quiet power of the Stoic. He learns from everything, and everyone becomes his instructor in self-mastery. Section 10. The final law of power. Never wrestle with shadows. There comes a moment on every Stoic's path when he realizes most of the battles he fought never even existed. They were illusions, projections, shadows. of his own mind. He argued with people who were not listening. He tried to prove himself to those who didn't care. He fought for validation in arenas built by his own insecurity, and one day he simply stopped because he saw the truth. You cannot wrestle with shadows. You can only stop feeding the light that makes them appear. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are disturbed by external things, it is not they that trouble you, but your judgment about them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. That is the final law of Stoic power. To conquer yourself is to conquer everything. The fool you argue with, he's a shadow of your pride. The enemy you resent, a shadow of your fear. The critic you can't ignore, a shadow of your need for approval. You think you're fighting them, but all along, you've been fighting the parts of yourself that still care." Dark psychology teaches that most conflict isn't about truth, it's about dominance, and the need to dominate always comes from weakness. The Stoic understands this. He realizes that the world is filled with noise, but very little wisdom, and his power lies in not joining the noise. Silence becomes his sword, stillness becomes his armor, observation becomes his throne. He doesn't need to explain himself, because his life does that for him. He doesn't chase validation, because his mind is already enough. He doesn't react to fools, because fools are background noise to his purpose. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The modern man lives in those imagined battles, checking comments, defending his image, seeking closure from chaos. But the Stoic has no such burden. He wakes up, masters his morning, does his work, serves his purpose, and lets the world spin however it must. He doesn't chase peace. He is peace. This is what it means to rise above. Not to escape the world, but to see it clearly and no longer be disturbed by its illusions. When the fool shouts, you stay silent. When they mock, you smile. When they lie, you move forward, because no shadow can touch you once you've stepped into your own light. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing to win every battle, you start winning every day. You stop being reactive. You become responsive. You stop being emotional. You become intentional. You stop fighting for respect and start embodying it. This is the end goal of Stoicism, not to feel nothing, but to feel everything and still remain unmoved. The Stoic is not cold, he's clear, not heartless, but harmonious. He doesn't live to prove the world wrong. He lives to make himself right within, and from that space, nothing outside can truly harm him, because he has built something stronger than armor, a mind that cannot be invaded, a peace that cannot be stolen, a purpose that cannot be shaken. So when the world tests you, smile. When the fool provokes you, observe. When the storm rises, breathe, because everything that tries to pull you down is just another invitation to rise higher. And once you rise high enough, you see it clearly. None of it ever mattered. The only battle worth fighting was the one within, and once you win that, you win everything. Final words. If this message spoke to your soul, remember, this is the way of the Stoic. No arguments, no reactions, no wasted energy, just inner control, silent strength, and peace that no fool can touch. Now, to every listener of Stoic Life, if you found power in these words, like the video to share this Stoic wisdom. Comment your own original motivational quote, your own Stoic truth, and turn on notifications so you never miss another lesson on self-mastery, silence, and strength. This is your reminder. Control your mind and the world follows.